the first question I want to ask is how are you doing right now? I mean, I think we're going to have a lot of discussions about especially the experience of you watching back everything that happened on the race and now getting to relive, I think, especially how things ended. How are the two of you doing at this moment?
I mean, we're doing okay. Yeah, we're doing okay. Yeah.
It's, talking about, some of the things that we've seen on the show. It is, hard to look back on some of the things that we've seen.
hmm Relive them,
Yeah, I mean,
essentially.
it's
Yeah.
essentially relive them.
hmm
But, it's at the same time kind of a reminder of how far we've come since then. And
100%.
so it's always kind of bittersweet, when you look back at the race. But
Yeah.
yeah, at this point, we're kind of moving forward in this new kind of knowledge that we have. And yeah.
And also, no one prepares you for the double experience that you have when it comes to doing a show and living all of that. And then you come home and then you watch it on TV, and now it's you and the public,
Oof,
and
yeah.
all that comes with that. And yeah,
Mm.
no one prepares you for that, so it's like a double experience.
Really,
It's
yeah.
very intense.
Yes.
Well, let's
Like,
let
sorry, may I?
no, please
Uh,
go ahead.
when we saw the first episode, it was very interesting because, you're always looking forward to like, okay, it's going to be on TV. You've been anticipating this for months,
Yeah.
and you wonder what that first reaction is going to be. Because in your mind, you have, you want to be liked. You want to be someone that is liked by the public. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of funny after our premiere party in Los Angeles. I went to Reddit, because I was very much looking forward to this moment. And I
Nobody
was
knew that
and
go with it.
I was very surprised to find that people actually did not like me at all. And it was
You
just,
like, what?
I was mortified and I just couldn't I said, what happened? So yeah, it's taken me some time to get used to that
Yeah.
discrepancy between, what I see
Mm,
from my perspective and what,
mhm.
somebody from the outside sees. And so yeah.
Especially once there's a final edit and you
Oh,
only
right.
remember certain events.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, let's rewind back to the beginning of this double experience, because the two of you spoke about how the Amazing Race was so important in both of your lives. I mean, you talked about how it was sort of a form of reconciliation in a manner of speaking. So then talk to me a bit more about your history sort of with the fandom, and then what made you, especially considering how important the show was for the two of you, to decide we're gonna try to be a team for this show that played such an essential role in where we are now.
So I actually introduced her to the race. So I started watching it with my mom all the way back when it was first airing. It was CBS had the big three: Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race, and I would watch with my mom, and that's how I got turned on to the show. And so during COVID, I think it was right.
Right.
We had just we had a separation that I believe the show has discussed a couple of
Hmm.
times,
Yeah.
and we decided to get back together, and we got back together over essentially watching The Amazing Race, and
He
uh,
says it so professionally. So listen, whenever I would come home, well, now our home, but whenever I would come over and drop off the girls, because that was the hardest part, switching off time with the girls, he'd be watching the show, and at first I'm like, "What are you watching?" And oh, he introduced me to Amazing Race. So then I would come over the following week, and he's watching the show again, and I'm like intrigued. They're doing a really cool challenge. Oh, I would totally rock that.
and I'm sort of conveniently having it on when she dropped off the
Yes.
kid.
And it set out this new like neutral space where we're now talking, but we're not talking about our relationship. We're talking about a TV show.
Yeah. And
And
pretty soon she's actually sitting down on the couch with me watching it. And it happens.
it is so wild.
We reconnect and it's absolutely because of the Amazing Race.
So
And
when we finally got back together, that's the first thing we did. We applied for the show.
Oh my
that was it.
God.
2021?
2021,
Yeah.
spring 2021. Yeah.
So we got it on our fourth try.
We applied 4 times. Yes.
Fourth time's the charm. I love it. Well, let's fast forward from the beginning to the end of things because look, it was certainly an up and down journey for the two of you emotionally. And I'll admit, I was honestly a little surprised of sort of like almost being at like the acceptance stage of the grieving process, the two of you by the end. And where I think you're both sort of understandably like, listen, it was not our day. That's fine. Jonathan, you had a lot of expressive of, obviously what Anna was able to overcome in this roadblock, considering all the fears you had coming in. Talk to me about what was going through both of your heads sort of on that final day, considering from the fact that this was a water-based day to just kind of coming to this conclusion that this thing you were searching for, you were seeking out for so long just wasn't going to happen.
You know what it was? It was like, we for when we went on the race, the goal was never like to win. I mean, that was certainly in the back of our minds.
You
But
did promise me $1 million though.
I did promise, our immediate goal was just to get to the final three. So you see a lot of tension as we get closer and closer to the final three because the stress level goes way up.
Mhm.
So you see something, happen in the 10th leg and then the 11th. That's because the stress level
Mhm.
is just rising. And then when we get to the 12th leg, I feel like I could finally let go. And so it's sort of weird. When I'm on that final leg, I have this sort of peace about me. And
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, but once
Yeah.
we got to that roadblock, obviously things came crashing
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But it's interesting because I remember you telling Phil, something along the lines like on the mat when everybody's there, like, I feel like even with perfect navigation, this just wasn't the leg that was meant for us to win. Like, and I
yeah,
can now find peace with that because obviously it wasn't meant to be. Even with that, we weren't gonna win.
yeah, you just have to accept it,
Yeah.
And I sometimes would ask myself this question: Is it better to lose a close race where you just barely like lose by like 2, 3 seconds, or would you rather lose in a blowout? And I think
Mm.
for sure I would have preferred to lose the way we did when I just knew that there was nothing that we could have done,
Yeah.
given her lack of experience in the water,
Yeah.
to win. So it helps me accept it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Anna, what was it like from your perspective having to face a massive fear of yours so head on with $1 million on the line?
No. And I mean, it was terrifying. We before every leg, but especially before this leg, you go over what ifs, right? You start developing some sort of like sense of what would we do in whatever situation. And there's usually like some, or at least based on all the seasons that we watch, there's usually ever like a sports related roadblock or a task that requires balls, which I am absolutely horrible at. Or there is, I don't know, some type of ascent or something that's super like
Physical.
physical.
Yeah.
And so when we get to this roadblock and it just wants to go above and beyond, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're gonna get in a helicopter. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be parasailing. That's I think what we were all saying.
Yeah, we thought for sure it was
Even
parasailing.
Han had mentioned something like I thought it was also something that required us to get super up high.
And the problem is, it's this really extreme sort of chasm. We have no frame of reference of what this thing even is. So we read flyboarding and it's like, what is this? I don't even know what this is. So it's just like, oh,
But something that happens in the race, again, you're so driven by adrenaline and focus. You accept really quick the fear. You accept it and you have to
just
tackle
gotta
it.
get it done.
And you
Yeah.
just got to get it done. So in my head, I'm thinking, I am terrified, but I cannot be terrified right now. I just need to do my best. And that's essentially what I did, but it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And what rewatching it was honestly the most difficult. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure I was in
Yeah. I was crying
it was
last night when we
heartbreaking.
watched it. Yeah, it was so hard for both of us.
Yeah.
But like I said on the show, I'm glad that she did that. I thought it was a great moment for her on the show. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that we can at least take that from it. You know what I mean?
I was just proud that I didn't take a penalty.
I thought, yeah, you heard me when she was back. I said, "Did you take a penalty?" I wasn't sure because
Yeah.
they were set up so far
And
from
I
the
was gone
shore.
for 1 hour after Jack left.
Oh,
After
wow.
it was a very big gap.
I
I
mean,
don't.
it was, and that's why I am devastated because I just know that was the moment where we lost $1 million.
Mm.
It's
Well,
yeah.
that's exactly at the end of
But
it all. Now, look, we could do an entire separate interview, even recapping sort of beat by beat many of the emotional lows that were hit by the two of you over the course of this. And, you two have done, I think, such a great job summating a lot of the stuff you were going through in individual moments, individually as well, on your YouTube channel, but trying to sort of contain it all within one sort of general question. Again, a lot of the behaviors that we were seeing, that you were all seeing back, was this idea of Jonathan, either you shutting down or getting angry at the circumstances that you felt were being put upon you, and for lack of a better term, kind of taking it out or projecting it onto Anna. So talk to me a bit, try to verbalize for me a bit, like, was it a commonality in terms of behavior? What was going through your head during those moments?
how can I describe it? So,
Mhm.
um, when I look back at it, what I see and from what I know now, it's almost as if you don't know what's happening in your head. For a regular person, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say regular, a neurotypical person, you have a good sense of the emotions that are coming through your mind at any given time. But for me, it's almost impossible to make sense of the emotions and because they're just so powerful in that moment. And so oftentimes I would just unleash that emotion on her, and that was obviously wrong.
Close proximity, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's so impossible to describe to someone that doesn't live this experience. And that's why I think it's been so hard for people that see it. You say, okay, he has autism, but what does that have to do with anything? And I think an important distinction is that I was undiagnosed
Mm.
and I had no tools. I didn't know what was happening with me. And if I could just, I wish I could just put people in my shoes in that moment so that they could understand just how difficult it is um, to be in that moment. And it's just very hard to do.
I mean, it took me so long, even going through therapy and even just doing tons of research and reading, just for me to fully understand. And once I mean, I still don't fully understand. And, there's so much more communication now because he's able to use his words now and he has methods
And
and
because I'm aware, it starts with awareness. Now that
knowing.
I just know, like, oh, that's something
You
happening
approach
with
things in
me.
a different angle,
Yeah, just
100%.
the awareness itself is so important.
Right.
Yeah.
But now that I am learning, again, it's just like the fog was lifted and so many things made sense. Even conflicts that we've had in the past,
Oh,
even
100%. It all makes
when we
sense.
separated, it was always misunderstandings, miscommunications,
We were able to backtrace almost all of our previous
almost
conflicts and
everything,
trace that back to like autism. And
and,
so
and not understanding each other.
it's the closest thing to a magic bullet for our relationship is
Yeah.
there ever was. And so it's made a
Yeah.
radical difference in our lives in just this very short time span.
There was another analogy you used in the mat to describe us when Phil asked, like, essentially, like, what's gonna happen with you two? And you were like, we are like two puzzle pieces that don't quite fit together.
Yeah, I had
And for
told
whatever
Tyler,
reason, God put us in the situation and we're making it work. And now we know
and now we know.
that is a fact.
Yeah.
We are two puzzle pieces are never gonna fit together because we are so different.
Yeah.
His brain works different than mine.
Yes, talk to me more about this process because, when you get this diagnosis, did it come as a result of like after the race, you think about like, okay, there were some behaviors I exhibited that I want to look more into?
Exactly.
It was me telling him, you need to do something about this.
Yeah, so she started, as soon as we got back, she got me, nonviolent communication.
That was the
the
first
thing
thing.
she bought. She said, here, you need to read this. And that's how it started. But it was very interesting. So we got back from the show in May, right? Was it May or June?
June.
Sorry, June.
Mid-June.
And so when you get back, you take time and you go through that grieving process
grieving
and
process.
you get over losing. And then there's a sort of lull and sort of you're in this sort of catatonic state where you just are just kind of numb to the whole thing. And then in October, I believe it was, they sent us an email and she said she gives us the air date for the show. And it's like suddenly it's like it just becomes very real in that moment. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
all of my worst moments are about to be broadcast
For millions to see.
And so I panic. This is October. And the first thing I do, it's very interesting. I decide, I realized I had a lot of bad moments. And so I want to go back through the race and look at some of the notorious people that have been on the race who have had a lot of bad moments. So I look at season 23 with Travis. I look at the season with, I believe his name was Nick. And I'm trying to find commonalities between these people and me in order to better understand, like, why was I behaving in this way? And what I was struggling with was finding someone that I could just say, yeah, well, that's me or that's me. But I couldn't really find anyone that really matched up with me perfectly. And so at that point, I started to explore this. I think you actually brought it up.
Well, this is the thing. His family has always had a suspicion, and I don't know. It was just never addressed. It was never even. They never bothered.
We almost considered it an inside
supposed-
joke that I was autistic.
100%.
And so I never took that seriously because that's just my family's sense of humor, So
Right.
I think at this point we start to say, okay, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
And so I go online and I do some reading, and I take this test. It's called the AQ, and that stands for autism quotient. And I take the test and it tells me, okay, you have traits that align with autism. And so like, okay, that's weird. Let me go ahead and get a doctor to confirm this. And we got the doctor and she basically
And something that we found really difficult was finding someone to help diagnose adults with
Mm.
autism.
Oh my gosh, that's a journey in
It is
itself.
so rare for adults with autism to find
Oh God.
even
No.
therapy. It was that in itself was a journey. And
Mm.
it's like, how do we get the help that you need? And just talking to different professionals just help us see how difficult this journey was.
And it's just it's so difficult because when you're a late diagnosed autistic person, you have developed by this time in your life a number of adaptations and masking strategies that you're not even aware of. So
Mhm.
yeah, it took my doctor some time to kind of go through my history and go through some of my characteristics and really understand like are you actually autistic? Because I disguise it so well, and I've learned to adapt to
Yeah.
the neurotypical world around me. And so eventually we got there, but it
Yeah.
was a journey. It was not straightforward at all.
There's this one thing that your mom always talks about how whenever they would go to restaurants,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jonathan, he does not like being around big crowds or talking to strangers. She will force him to make eye contact and no, you need to order your food. I mean, she's a baby boomer. She essentially forced him to, I don't know,
Go outside my
try to
comfort
be
zone.
neurotypical. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Because she didn't understand when I was, this is the 80s when I grew up. And
Mm.
so the science on autism just wasn't where it was today. And,
right.
there's so much more awareness today. And so
Thankfully. Yeah.
growing up, I didn't have any allowances
Mm,
for being autistic. That just
right.
wasn't a thing.
You were
It,
just
it's just, I
different.
was just, and then not only that, but growing up in Pomona, um, this is a rougher area. And so when you grow up in these places and you're just seen as like weird or different, it's almost a matter of survival to adapt. And so there's just so many factors that go into this and how I develop these adaptations and these masking techniques.
Yeah. And one
Uh,
of them is shutting down
well,
when you're
yeah,
overwhelmed
yeah, I mean,
and overstimulated.
yeah, there's always signs, but we
Mhm.
never knew like how to make sense of them. And then it all made
Yeah.
sense. You know?
And what I do want to give, the two of you kudos for is that while that diagnose does explain a lot of stuff, you have made it a point to say that it does not excuse it. And I think that, what the two of you, especially when I listened to your most recent podcast, you had brought up this idea that like what you are doing now in the present in the future does not obfuscate the past. You have explained like objectively these were bad things that you said, that you did, and like let's not get it twisted. And I think that it's good to take that sense of
Yeah,
accountability. Obviously, the best time would have been in the moment. The second best time is obviously now. Better
right.
late than never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be very clear about that. Just to reiterate, not making excuses. I know it's very hard because it seems like I'm trying to hide behind autism. I've been reading comments online, and I don't want people to feel that way. I really do, uh, especially now, understand that I can control where I direct that anger once it gets to the surface.
Right.
And
And one thing I
just
gotta
wish I knew it at the
say
time.
about Jonathan, he is very objective. I'm sorry, he is very objective, but also Jonathan is big on accountability for himself and for other people around him. And he has always, every time every leg ended, once his stimuli was able to calm down, we always talked to everything. There was always apologies. That is how we were able to reset. And you can tell that at the beginning of each leg, everything was fine.
Yeah, something that always, you saw on the show, I would often blame her for things that she didn't deserve blame for.
Mhm.
And I know what that was now. I mean, I was
Mm.
just trying to make sense of these emotions in my head, and I would just put it on the first thing that I saw, which was her. And it was every time I did that, I was wrong. But what I understand now is when you get to that point, when the anger gets to that point, you just want to get it out, and you put it on the first thing you see, and that was always my wife. I'm on a team with my wife, so she would
Yeah.
often get the brunt of that anger, and yeah, that's definitely one of my biggest regrets.
Mm.
Uh, about my experience. Yeah.
I seriously cannot thank you both enough. I know that it was not the most ideal experience to watch back, to go through, but like I think it does speak to both of your sense of maturity and your admiration for each other, that the fact that you were able to get through it together, that you were able to look into what might be happening, that you were able to look at ways to move forward from it. I do think it's something that should be admired. And so I'm incredibly appreciative of the fact that you are so open about your journey on the race and especially off the race, watching it all back. I know this could not have been an easy situation for you both, but the fact that you are here right now together talking to me with so much candor, I think just speaks to the love that you two have for each other that was, if anything, even more renewed by getting to do this once in a lifetime experience together.
Yeah, we definitely learned a lot about each other. One, that I was more patient than I thought.
Yeah. Although it's
And
easy when you're racing for $1 million, right? When you have to kind of keep the ship afloat.
and also as a parent, you get used to just, muting the noise out. But yeah, I think I explained this on our last recap. I was there on a mission because winning $1 million and winning the Amazing Race was bigger than me and him. This was, we always talked about generational wealth and how can we help our families and how can we set up our daughters for a brighter future than, opportunities that we never had. And, again, our mission was bigger than us, and I needed to stay focused. One of us needed to stay focused when you needed to,
Yeah, yeah, you were always there for us, and I give you credit for that, massive credit, because I just can imagine what that was like for you. It must have been very difficult though. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. I know, again, these are very difficult conversations to have. And from the bottom of my heart, I have so much appreciation for the two of you speaking so openly about this. I know a lot of people do as well. So thank you dearly. And I hope you and the family are doing well. And congratulations. I know, again, it was not the $1 million, but if the goal was to make it to the final three, that's mission accomplished.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. I
yeah.
mean, we're proud that we at least maybe
Never
because
leave
not just
undefeated.
not just that, but come on. I mean, look, I'm a black autistic man, and she is a Mexican woman that comes from nothing. We have two kids, and the fact that we beat all these teams despite that, and despite a lot of adversity that we faced, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's just a remarkable achievement. So yeah.
Yeah.